Hello my friends, welcome back to the channel. I wanted to talk to you today about something I returned to recently, and that is Destiny 2. I have not played this for months. And for an old fan like me, I say old fan because I was playing Destiny pretty religiously since Alpha, all the way up until the final shape. But with the final shape, it did feel like things kind of concluded. And not only that, but the content released after that, if you ask any Destiny fan, has just kind of been mid to just straight up bad. It's just been a real mixed bag lately for Destiny and Bungie as well. Bungie, of course, being caught up in so many controversies and so many different problems that I personally think it really just got under every Destiny fan's skin, regardless of how well the game was doing. That being said, the game wasn't doing very well, but I wanted to jump in to see how it was doing with Renegades. I did jump in for Edge of Fate, and that was a really mixed bag. I put up a review for that on the channel, and I said it was alright. And I still stand on that. I think the story of that was definitely the highlight of the whole experience, but everything else around it was just kind of cumbersome. I personally did not hate the morph ball. I'm going to call it the morph ball because that's what it is. It's a Metroid thing. But getting around Kepler and trying to get anywhere was just a hassle, to where it was just going through the motions to get to the next story segment. And when it was done, I had zero urge to keep playing from there. I haven't even had Destiny installed on my computer for quite some time. And I tell everyone this because I want everyone to know that I come from a very neutral place, not from a fanboy stance, and not from the stance of I want this to fail because I'm frustrated with Destiny in one way or another. I want Destiny to be good. That being said, I'm not giving credit where it is not due anywhere in this review. So if it is just bad, it's going to be called out for being bad. And if it is good, it is genuinely going to be called out for being good. With all that said, I hope you have stuck around after that long-winded intro, but I wanted y'all to know where I'm at. So, let's get on with the review. If there's one thing I want to lead off with, it is that this is more Destiny 2. And that is both a good and a bad thing, especially if you have been burnt out on the game itself. But along with the paid DLC, a lot of changes to the actual game itself that are free have also been put up as part of this giant update. Things like the Vault overhaul that gives you more Destiny item manager like things such as more slots, organization, filtering options, and that kind of functionality in the game by default. And this is a great boon to anyone who is playing on console especially. Tiered loot continues to be a very good change, making the loot grind much more interesting. The Returners buff is a nice thing that Bungie is giving back to players who have returned to the game, giving you more XP, rewards, and loot for returning after a long break. And this also applies to others in your fire team. Plenty of really nice changes to gear, weapons, and ability tuning have also been made, but there are so many, you should probably just look up the patch notes if you are that curious. However, the portal is something that has been iterated on a lot since last I have been on. The portal does seem to force you, though, into certain activities in order to make consistent leveling progress. This in particular comes as a 50-50 kind of split. On one hand, it's nice to know what you need to do all in one place to get on that level grind, but on the other hand, it really does keep you in the same bunch of activities week after week. We'll see how this is kind of iterated on in the future, but right now, I still kind of see this as more of a negative and wish there was a more freeform kind of thing that we could use in order to interact with Destiny's universe as a whole. I think the best thing about it for me is that the bounty system has been kind of overhauled and is in this by default, so that you spend a lot less time going to the tower, and so it keeps you in the action where you would like to be more of the time. So let's talk the state of crossovers in general in Destiny, because this is very much a Star Wars crossover DLC. Everything in it is Star Wars themed, from the music, the art direction, the characters, the weapons, all of it. It is all very Star Wars, and there are positives and negatives to this. which admittedly is a common theme in this review, but really nothing in this DLC was an absolute 100% hit. A lot of the things in it have some kind of drawback. So, what did we like about this? What did I really enjoy about this? I love the blend of Star Wars with Destiny. Its feeling, the settings, the weapons, the outfits, and the general vibes of this DLC are pretty much immaculate. I really enjoy this theme. Everything in it seems to have an inspiration from Star Wars, but isn't really copying or feeling derivative in any way. The inclusions of certain locations that you can clearly see from Star Wars are awesome to find and see as you're going through this campaign. From the trash compactor from A New Hope to locations from Empire Strikes Back, like the Sarlacc pit makes an appearance, along with Jabba the Hutt's, ship that they're on over the Sarlacc pit. Ultimately, it feels like a great blend, like I said. That being said, I don't really like that people can now straight up be Darth Vader or Boba Fett or Stormtroopers. This kind of feels like the Fortnitification of Destiny. I would rather really have outfits that blend elements of certain properties. A great example of this would be the Witcher crossover outfits. None of them are one-to-one with the Witcher. They are all Witcher style gear in the style of Destiny. And that seemed true with just about everything up until this point. Now you actually have Kylo Ren and Boba Fett and all these characters just kind of running around, and to me that just doesn't feel right. I don't like that. I would rather it feel, like a blend rather than just be a one-to-one cosplay. But that's honestly enough of that. Let's talk about the story. How was it? Now, this will contain light spoilers because it is pretty obvious where some things go, so talking about one thing can lead you to a very safe assumption of where it's going to go. Especially some events and timeline things that happen in this story are very reminiscent of old Star Wars films. So, I love the new characters, and they are great additions to the cast of the game. Blue, who is a Drifter's ghost, Arnor, who is the Praxic Order knight that is following you around, and probably the closest thing to a gray Jedi we've kind of had in a property. She kind of just seems neutral, but wants to hold up the ideals of her order. Standing opposite of Arnor, though, is Duregin Bale, and I really think this is one of the better villain characters that has been in Destiny for some time. He has a lot of motivations that you can clearly understand. He is present through this story all the way through. He has a certain emotional weight to him, no doubt brought forward by Alex Lee, who is a phenomenal voice actor, and I think he did a fantastic job with this character. He's very interesting, and I really loved any time his character was on screen. He works as a very awesome opposite to Drifter, as this is really Drifter's story in the first place. I even like these smaller side characters that you're constantly interacting with in this story, such as different Vex who have kind of broken off from the influence of the conductor from past seasons and now have their own sense of sentience and individualism that they carry on and use while they're just hanging out in the new Tharsis outpost. You see these Vex are fully dressed, they're all acting individually, they love to gamble, they have their own faction, and it's really cool to see. And the same can basically be said about the Cabal, who in particular have my personal favorite drip in this game. I love the way the Cabal look. They look so freaking cool. And speaking of the location of Tharsis, but like I have mentioned, nothing lands 100% in this, so there are some things that I didn't enjoy quite as much. I for one like myself a little campiness in my stories, however sometimes it was just a little bit cringy here and there, as well as very predictable. But one thing what always, did for me at least, was be enjoyable, and that was my main takeaway. It was very enjoyable. However, a lot of the conversation and events in this felt like they should really have been their own cutscenes or isolated conversations. rather than conversations that are just happening in the background while you are running activities. It kind of took away from the emotional impact of some of these conversations, especially when a lot of these things that are happening in the background are very interesting. For instance, a conversation between Lodi and Dredgen Bale. I won't spoil this conversation, but there is a very intense one that happens in the background while you are doing one of these missions, and I thought it was some of the best dialogue in the game. But I was so busy doing other things that it really didn't have the impact on me that it really should have. And that's kind of a shame because there was some phenomenal voice acting and even character writing in some of these sections. So I hope in the future that these sections can more be just about the gameplay with some little things here and there, and then have, an isolated cutscene, even if it's just like an artwork cutscene like they had around the final shape time, to really flesh out these characters even more and let that sit with you rather than be just in the background. I would love that. Another negative for me was that some story beats can feel a bit like some been there and done that, with some elements of the story mirroring Star Wars a little bit too closely. Like if I told you there is a deflector shield, what is the first conclusion you're going to come to? You're going to say, oh, we're going to go get rid of that so that we can go attack the big thing. Yes, you are going to do that. And that will lead you to another assumption of what's going to happen in this story. And a lot of the time, you are probably correct. It is very much mirroring a lot of the classic movies, less so the sequels, and more of stuff from the prequels because they are very much aware that's where the real sauce is. You won't be surprised where the story goes, but I guarantee you'll have a good time going through it and be entertained by what is happening, especially when the cutscenes and a lot of the action is very well done. The motion capture for these are great. The choreography for a lot of the lightsaber battles are very good too, and there is plenty of little blink and you'll miss it references that gave me a big old giggle, such as a random Cabal Imperium trooper bonking his head on a door earlier on in the story. If you know, you know. As for the actual gameplay of this, what's been added, what are the ups, what are the downs, it is also a mixed bag, obviously. Common theme, like I said. Love the new sabotage and smuggler missions in the Lawless Frontier. From the higher difficulty brought by no natural health regen and shields, to having the new Renegade abilities. Renegade abilities being basically Helldiver stratagems that you can call in that are very useful in battle. Some can be much more useful than others though, such as an airstrike call-in and the Vex shield that you can shoot out of but nothing can shoot into, while others like the Scout Shank can largely kind of be ignored outside of a few niche uses. The new weapons introduced feel very unique in this game's sandbox. Having heat-based weapons that don't really reload and can potentially be fired forever if you keep track of your heat does change the pace of combat, even if by a little, and feels very novel in the way of feeling like Star Wars blasters. The heavy sniper in particular feels great to use even with a subpar roll, doing very large amounts of damage with its one-shot capacity. But the star of the show, pun intended, is the Praxic Blade, your lightsaber. The Praxic Blade feels and functions exactly how you would imagine and makes you feel and be an absolute powerhouse. Borderline broken with some mechanics. It brings the trifecta of defense, being able to deflect shots from enemies, offense, being able to do great amounts of damage to enemies despite not being a heavy weapon. It goes near kinetic slot, and utility, given the benefit to certain builds by being kinetic, bringing both light and dark energy charge for Transcendence, the Prismatic subclass for example, and being able to throw it out to distant enemies to do damage and just look really damn cool. But I must say, this is still Destiny 2 at its core, and as such doesn't feel wildly different than any other kind of big weapons change that has been introduced in past expansions. You can see more and more the limitations of what Bungie can do with the capabilities of this game's engine and design. An example of this is when using Renegade abilities, which have to be basically used as second page of abilities rather than be able to be set to specific keybinds. And in some cases, like having to use the same keybind as the powered melee in this second control node, I lost the ability to use my powered melee after using the Renegade ability, until I activated Transcendence or had switched to a sword and back to a firearm in order to gain the ability to throw that out again. This was kind of an annoying bug that happened to me more than a handful of times in my playthrough. And all of this is kind of compounded and hammered into you when you also realize there aren't any real new subclasses or wildly new abilities or anything like that, with the exception of some functionality and uses for other abilities like the Warlock Rift I use as an example at the start of the review, which can now be cast while moving so you aren't the easy stationary target. There's also been some changes to the Titan and the Hunter subclasses to buff and change how some of their abilities work as well, but I am less familiar with those as I main Warlock and only played Renegades with that class, so I can't comment too much on their functionality. There is also a lot to do after your campaign, and I don't mean like there's just miles and miles of just quest log things that you can just do just for the sake of doing them. There are some genuinely worthwhile quest lines and things to do, such as being able to really customize your plastic blade when going through certain quest steps and doing certain things for that weapon. You can change the color of your blade, you can give it different buffs and debuffs. It's very customizable, and that alone will keep me playing for quite a while. But there's also you leveling up your kind of factions in this, and doing that unlocks the ability to get better and better loot through the activities in this. The tiered loot system is doing some heavy work here, as that's really your goal. If you choose a faction and level them up to a certain point, you can just straight up get an upgrade that will just start giving you level 4 to 5 tier loot, which is really what you want, and that serves as a very good motivator in order to do all of the Renegade activities and different styles of activities like the smuggling ones and sabotage missions that you really did do during your main playthrough of the story, but doing them here with a full fire team and on higher difficulties is a very different experience, and I did have a very good time grinding these out a bit, and I still have a long ways to go, so I will be playing them some more in the future. Now that being said, it remains to be seen what's going to be added in the weeks after all of this has come out this week, as Bungie does like to just kind of drop things out of nowhere. So we'll see what gets added. If anything worthwhile is added to this, it will definitely bring a lot of value to this package overall, when I already enjoy what's on offer here right now. And I will say on a side note that going into the Crucible right now is an hilarious endeavor with how many Guardians are basically running around throwing super powered boomerangs at each other. It is honestly a sight to behold and is quite glorious. So let's round out this review and see where I land with all of this being said. This review kind of ran a little longer than I was hoping it was going to, but I really wanted to get most, if not all, of my thoughts out there. As a whole, I walk away from Renegades with mixed feelings. Not because I don't think that it's been a great addition and experience, but because with where Bungie and Destiny are as a whole, having very low morale and a large portion of the player base feeling like their journey ended with the final shape, and I don't blame them, by the way, that was our 10-year finale, I don't expect this to be a runaway success, or even a baseline success. I know people like myself who enjoy this franchise's world and can always enjoy any kind of well-written story in it will likely enjoy it, as we've really enjoyed most of the post-final shape story content, even if we didn't much like the actual playable content it came with it. However, with the others that have already had their feeling of finality and who feel like there isn't much in the way of stakes for the future that give you a real reason to want to gear up and be more powerful, I don't think this will really move the needle for them. I do hope people give this a try as I think it's some of the most worthwhile content Bungie has released in quite a while, and I do think that story-wise, between Edge of Fate and Renegades, we do have or will have a new goal and big bad, or bads, that we can look forward to. I just hope that Bungie can shepherd Destiny to that next big thing. And with rumors circling all over the place that Destiny 3 is on the way, maybe there is hope for this franchise, after all. I sure hope that there is. Anyways, if you have made it through the review, which is 20 minutes long at this point, I so thank you for watching the entire thing and listening to my thoughts on this. I do still very much love Destiny, and I want the best for it. And I hope that a lot of people out there also start to kind of nurture this same mentality, as a lot of people just want to hate on it just to hate on it. But honestly, that to me just shows how much people care about this game even still. They do want it to be good, and when it's not, it's just very frustrating because we know what Bungie is capable of and we know what Destiny can be, but it's never really lived up to what it can be. So, are you with me on giving a little bit of hope to this franchise after playing this? Or are you just kind of done with Destiny and are just kind of keeping up with what's going on from the outside looking in? I would love to hear from people out there and hear where you are all sitting with this DLC. Am I kind of in the minority for liking it as much as I do? Am I crazy for not liking the things that, bug me, like the cosplay style outfits? Let me know in those comments below. I hope this video was informative and enjoyable to watch, and I hope to hear from you guys in the future, and I hope you'll want to hear from me. Subscribe if you would like to see more videos from me. I do a mixture of reviews, gameplay videos, and just videos of me sharing my thoughts. I even have a couple of different little web shows that I have started recently that I think will be a very fun project and a fun watch, if I do say so myself. Like this video if you enjoyed it, and I will talk to y'all later. Peace.